Hey guys, Kim from Script Life. Got a couple questions via the email about the little quarantine setup that I did. Thought I'd go over it with you. Yeah, this is basic scrimping on a budget is what I call it. But yeah, so these tanks here, these are 2.5 gallon, little tiny nanos is all they are. I believe they were $5 each. Yeah, so substrate, I always use substrate from my bin, my planted bin. You've seen it. Pretty much every time I break down a tank and redo it, I take all the substrate out and I will basically clean it with tank water so I'm not losing any beneficial bacteria, and then I throw it in the bin. It grows great plants, reusable source later when I need to do something like this or set up another tank. So that's what I do with that. These little filters, yeah, let me show you. So these are, all they are little, they're called CF10s. They are $3 a piece. I pulled the little driftwood from just other tanks that I've had. That also has a good source of beneficial bacteria. Subwasser tang, you've seen my tanks. I have tons of it. This is just a bin I have out here now because I was trying to grab some. So yeah, pretty much what I do is, yeah, I just, oh, by the way, little strip light, Home Depot special. It was like, I think it was like $10 or something. It was pretty ridiculous. And an air pump, of course. You gotta have an air pump, airline. So I mean, overall, these are super cheap setups. So what I do, you know, I fill it up with maybe that much water the first day. I put in some Borneo, I guess it's in Live and Live, I don't know what it is, but it's basically a conditioner. And I do that every time I set up a new tank. And then I'll put in some Bacter. Of course, Bacter's great stuff for feeding or setting up tanks. So, you know, I get that in there, kind of let it sit for, I don't know, half an hour to an hour. Basically take my tongs and just, these normally quarantine tanks or little small setups, I don't use a whole lot of substrate. I think maybe there's 1/4 inch at most, and I just kind of run the tongs through there to make sure all the air bubbles are out of the thing so it doesn't trap any bad bacteria, anaerobic bacteria or anything like that. So then I'll fill it on up, get it close to the top, and then I'll use my good old salty shrimp mineral GH. These are for Neos, by the way. So well, that's what I use it for. I will use it for other things, but this is just to get things going with the right GH and everything. So I'll measure my TDS. I try to get it in the like 175, 200 range. And when I've got that, then I usually try to get it right at the 200, and then I top it off with a little bit of water, and then it drops it down a little bit because it's going to rise back up a little bit over the next week or so. And you don't want it to go up too high if you've already got it at pretty much the max you want it. So once I've done that, yeah, it's pretty much ready to go because your substrate's already good. You can add shrimp really quick. I usually do it like the day before I know I'm going to get shrimp. That kind of play it safe. But yeah, so pH on all these is usually 7, 7.1, possibly 7.2, depends on the water that day. But my house, my water out here is naturally in that range, 7, 7.1, 7.2. I use an RO system, as you know, you've seen it. It doesn't affect pH really. It just, if I want to drop the pH for some gardenias, I will use buffering substrate, shrimp stratum, something like that, to actually drop it down to about 6 or maybe 5.8. It's usually in that range somewhere. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do. Once it's set up, after I've gotten all the shrimp in and acclimated, this is the magic stuff right here. Mosura gravadas. That is the magic formula for me. It's worked every time. So this is my tried and true method. This is what I do every time I get shrimp. I have very, very, very few losses. I didn't lose anything out of these tanks. I lost one crystal overnight. It's probably just transiting from up there down to here. So And there's that red zone, they call it. It's supposed to be the first 30 days. I rarely lose any shrimp whenever I'm setting up new stuff. So, yeah, the Missouri Gravitas. Basically, I take a little, let me show you the little spoon for it. So I basically figure out how many tanks I'm going to dose, which is usually quite a few because I'll do all these at once. But actually, the spoon's in the other cabinet. So what I'll do is take the little spoon that comes with it. I'll mix it into, I have these little containers. Hold one, I'll be right back. So, yeah. Basically it's these. These are great. Okay, so our little town has a homecoming every year. They usually give you a bucket or they give you a pitcher for beer, whatever. I don't really drink beer, but I walk around after it's done, and these are laying all over the place. So perfect little containers to use for shrimp stuff, fish stuff, whatever, transferring water. They're awesome. So I get these. I will add Missouri Gravitas in the bottom, just 2, 3, 4 spoons. Like I said, depends on how many you're gonna do. If I'm doing just these tanks, I think I did 2 spoons full, the little tiny spoons. Fill it up with RO water. I use my little hand blender. Blend it all up till it's nice and even. There's no clumps left. It's pretty much just all water, and it'll look extremely dirty. It's pretty disgusting looking. But while you do that, look how many you got. Fill it in on each one, basically using all, trying to evenly space it out. Tanks are going to look disgusting for, I don't know, about an hour till the filter moves everything around, the current moves everything around. These guys are going to eat it off every surface. What I find when I'm quarantining them, and for that first, I would say 2 weeks, you're going to find that almost every shrimp that you have in those tanks are going to leave a molt. It's like a super molt for these guys. They just, like, there's molts everywhere, all over the place. It really helps with that. Then on an established tank, one that you have regular shrimp in that you've had for a while, I do the same thing on those, and what I find is tons of buried shrimp within a week or two after I've added it. I don't know if it's like Spanish fly for shrimp. I have no idea, but this, I'm telling you, this stuff, I've been using it for years. It works like a charm. You go by what you know, and that's what I know. I mean, I don't know if other people will agree with that. They might not. A lot of people say, oh, you got to have a 10-gallon shrimp tank minimum. I've been breeding shrimp in 5-gallon tanks forever. I mean, since I started. I find the smaller the tank, the faster they breed, the better they breed. When I have a bigger tank, I don't know, it's almost like, think of it as if I go to a small bar or something. I mean, I'm married, not me, but somebody else goes to a small bar. You're going to probably meet more chicks, right? Because it's a smaller bar. I mean, there's more chances of you running into people. Go to like a big old dance nightclub, you may only see the half the chicks in there. Why? Because there's more space. Dumb logic probably, but that's what makes sense to me. So I've always used regularly small tanks. Now I do have 20-gallon tanks. That's kind of the max I'll go because, but those are for established colonies. Like I have a ton of shrimp in my smaller tanks. I'll start transferring them out slowly, acclimate them into the bigger tank where now there's way more shrimp in that 20-gallon, more chances for breeding because there's more of them. Smaller tanks, I usually like these 2.5 gallons. Some people be like, what are you even thinking? You can't do a 2.5 gallon. I do it all the time. I usually start them with 20, 25 shrimp. They start breeding out, they start making more, I move them off to a bigger tank. Sometimes that bigger tank is 10 gallons. That's where they'll stay. You've seen my golden bag tank. Technically it's a Shrimp King, it's a 12-gallon tank. The thing is nuts. You've seen it. You know what it looks like. Yeah, so that is proof that you can do this at a decently small tank. To me, these are absolutely perfect for starting a good breeding colony. They're close together. They do everything close together. you see them really grouped together. You rarely see them spread out very much. So yeah, that's kind of my scrimping on a budget. Just getting a new thing in, getting new shrimp in, getting them going, getting cheaply. I mean, it's not expensive at all. I've got these on the kitchen table because the place where these go are on top of a rack, so a little harder to monitor them and watch them. So wife's nice enough to let me keep them out here for until I get them going. Once they've established, then I'll move them around. But yeah, so again, TDS, conditioner, bacteria, Bacter, great stuff. Swear by that stuff on any tank. And then coup de grace. Why is that so unfocused? I'm sorry, this is ridiculous, but yeah, so that is the coup de grace right there. That's the last thing you do, and it is awesome. So yeah, take my advice. Don't. I'm just offering it, throwing it out there, trying to help everybody out. This is a community hobby. Everybody I've ever met that does this are just amazing people. Tons of support, tons of information sharing. That's what I'm all about too. So yeah, enjoy. Tips, comments, suggestions, throw them below. Send them to my email, scrimptlife@gmail.com. Thanks guys. Talk to you later.